Welcome to our Monday morning devotions. We're continuing our studies in the book of Philippians, and today we are in Philippians chapter 1 and beginning at the end of verse 18 and going through to verse 26. Yes, and I will rejoice, for I know that through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will turn out for my deliverance. As it is my eager expectation and hope that I will not be at all ashamed, but that with full courage now as always Christ will be honoured in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If I am to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labour for me. Yet which shall I choose? I cannot tell. I am hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with you all, for your progress and joy in the faith, so that in me you may have ample cause to glory in Christ Jesus, because of my coming to you again. And as we look at that passage, the first thing I want us to see there is Paul's confidence of deliverance. Paul, you remember, is in Rome in jail because of his preaching for the gospel. And in verse 19 there, speaks of how he is confident that he will be delivered from jail. He's confident because of the prayers of God's people for him, which emphasizes his great belief in the power of the God who people pray to and the significance of prayer, and also in the work of the Holy Spirit to sustain him and to carry him through those days. So he's facing a very difficult situation, but he has that wonderful confidence because of prayer, because of God. And then the second thing we see here is Paul's consecration to Christ in verses 20 and 21. He speaks in verse 20 about he hopes that he will not be ashamed. He hopes that he will, by God's grace, honour Jesus Christ, whether by life or by death. That's his great passion. That's what he's committed to, for the glory and honour of Jesus. Are you committed to the glory and the honour of Jesus? Paul, in many ways, gives what is probably the motto of his life in verse 21. That very famous verse, for me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. He was so committed to Christ, so committed to knowing Christ, to loving Christ, to serving Christ, that for him to leave this world, to be with Christ, is gain. It would be a better experience. His life is all about Jesus. And that's what Christianity is. It's all about Jesus, a relationship with Jesus, worshipping Jesus, trusting Jesus, knowing Jesus. So we have Paul's confidence in deliverance, Paul's consecration to Christ, and then thirdly we have Paul's conflict about death. In verses 22 to 24, he has a struggle there. In one sense, he wants to remain and to help and to be fruitful for the Philippians and other believers, that he will have served Christ and indeed contribute to the advance of the gospel in those days on earth. And so he wants to do that. And yet he knows, on the other hand, that to die and to go to be with Christ is something far better. What an attitude to death. He wants to stay, to be fruitful. But his greater desire is to go and to be in the closer presence of Jesus. Oh, I wonder, do you have that outlook? A life about serving and helping people for the glory of Christ. That's what life here on earth. But your greater desire is to be with Jesus. That desire to be with Jesus grows the more we know Jesus. And so, in these uncertain days, and days when we may have a fear of death that could come upon us, we need to pray that we would know Christ in that way, that we would know Christ in that saving way, we would know Christ in that deep way, where we have that longing to go and to be with him, which is far better. And then finally we have Paul's conviction about meeting. He says because he has worked out that He really believes it is better for him to stay and to be fruitful. And because of the prayers of God's people, he has this wonderful confidence that he will be released from prison and he will meet these Philippians again one day, in order that he can serve them and in order that he can help them to grow in their faith and in their walk with Christ. So we have Paul's confidence in deliverance, Paul's consecration to Christ, Paul's conflict about death, and Paul's conviction about meeting again. Read those verses again and just ask yourself, is what Paul says about him and his desires, is that true of you? Pray that you would know Christ in that amazing way. We'll have further devotions tomorrow, Tuesday. Thanks for listening now.